The circumstances of my life as a citizen of Mississippi is enough to make anybody right. The opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is indifference. We didn't begin on the auction block. We have been living a double existence ever since we've been here, sister. There's a new way of thinking. We got to think about ourselves differently. I wish I could remember how we put up them pyramids. I'd love to remember that. I don't regard the stage as different from life, you see. So since I'm living all the time, it is the same. You have to believe. You have to believe. And you must not betray your people. You must not. You must fight for them. They fought for you. And I mean, it was heavy. It was some shit. You can win. You ain't gonna be no millionaire, but you can win. I'm spent.
Me too.
I'm spent.
Mrs. Prentice, I'm Christina Drayton.
How do you do, Miss Drake?
How do you do, Mr. Prentice? I'm so
Her
pleased.
given name, Beulah Elizabeth Richardson, may not ring a bell,
And yours?
but I bet you remember Beah Richards as Sidney Poitier's mother in the film Guess Who's Coming to Dinner.
What would you like?
May I have some sherry, please? What a lovely room.
Thank you. John, would you be bartender? I'll have
I've been everybody's mother, from Sydney to James Earl Jones and Great White Hope. So I've been everybody's mother from the very beginning.
Thank you, Steve. That's how Beah and I first met. She played my mother-in-law in the film Beloved. I barely spoke to her off camera. Her legend intimidated me.
My sweet Jesus, thank you.
A couple of years passed, and I heard Beah was recovering at home from a serious stent in the hospital and enjoyed having visitors. I called to see if she remembered me. She laughed and invited me over. And that's how our friendship began. I look back at those early visits with Beah and realize we needed each other. For Beah, it was her calling to teach, and what she had to offer was essential. For me, it was crystal clear. Beah possessed ancient wisdom that would change my life in ways unimaginable. So we spent many hours together the last year of her life. She rarely spoke about her losing battle with emphysema. Beah only spoke about how to live.
Question a human being has to answer is, who or what am I? I had experiences on the stage that I didn't think were possible, and then a strange thing happened. On the stage, I was complete and perfect, lacking no essential characteristic, nothing. The curtain came down, and who am I? Who am I? Identity has something to do with the nature of love, the degree of it that you're able to absorb into your being. That's my daddy. I wish I could tell you his name, his African name. I wish I could tell you who he was, because he remembered something of who he was. Something of who we were lingered in my family's memory. Something of that primordial history. When we came up from the sea, or down from the skies, or wherever, my father remembered something, and so did my mother. Not in the language, not in words, but enough to know that we did not live by the same code that other people live by. The Western ideas of fragmentation was unable to alter my father's sense of wholeness, his sense of unity. And I think we were the only family that I remember that called themselves black. Everybody else was colored, and most people were Negroes, but we were black. And I thank him. Oh, I thank him for that. I'm so grateful. I'm not afraid of the dark. He was a minister, a preacher they call him. My father was a poet. He was a good poet. He sang his sermons. He sang them. There was a truth. It has a ring, they say, that makes the hair stand on end, or the skin, or the goosebumps jump out, or the chill run down the spine. He had that magic. Oh, if I could have been the kind of actress that my father was, a preacher, ooh. And that's Miss Beah. That's my mother. I don't know where she came from. She still puzzles me. This woman, I don't know where she came from. She's pretty, isn't she? Pretty? I don't mean pretty, pretty. I mean pretty. My mother didn't want to bring children into this world. Not this world. And one time when the anguish was really more than I could bear, I looked at her and said, why in God's name would you have children? What are you going to tell them? What are you going to do? How can I come to my mother and tell her that this is happening and this is happening and there's nothing she can do? And I'm dying inside, and I don't want to tell her because I don't want to see her hurting and aching like I am. Why would you have children? Whatever for? Unless you have some words to tell them that's going to help them. You know. She said she didn't want to have children. She married an old man. So she only had 3. Ah, heaven is merciful, isn't it? Lovely woman. She takes her life on giving us an education.
There was no place for the spirit of an artist to soar outside her circumscribed circle. But what is wonderful is that it was a place that recognized her talent right away, early on.
You always knew that Beah was going to be an actress or a dancer because that's all what she expressed she wanted to be.
I was a playwright, I was a poet, I was a dancer, I was an orator. When you're open, and anybody tells you anything, you can do it. The legacy of Mississippi was to give me as much of the culture from which I sprung, our ancestors, that culture that let you know you are self-created. What then is black that it should be redefined? Black is the form of forms, the womb of infinity, out of which all things come and to which they in time return. It contains all things without distinction. In its deep pitch, the seed of life begins. From its dark down comes healing sleep. To its merciful ink, consciousness flees pain. From its infinite reach comes the light of day. Black plague, black list, black Sunday, black market notwithstanding. I have a pool on my...
I put the rug down to dry, then the rain came by.
Yeah, and the rain came.
I got you.
Turn the lights on inside.
2.
Okay. Now here we go. One more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, wow. Wait now. I'll be breathing better in a minute. It takes, all exhibit takes me out. Oh, wonderful. Here we go. Here we go to celebrate. Celebrate. Pan-African Film Festival. Here we go.
And you don't want some champagne in there, do you?
Oh, wow, sister. I wish I could. There's a fat burger. I haven't had a fat burger in 1,000 years.
This evening, we are honoring Beah Richards. The Pan-African Film and Arts Festival 2000, in appreciation of your dignified portrayal of African womanhood. You are a universal talent.
Thank you. I want to say something really extraordinary happened in Mississippi. I think in Mississippi, among those people, my people, I learned the meaning of love. And I tell you, the kind of love that we shared then is the kind of love we need to reintroduce to our families. Our children must know that we love them. They've got to know that we love them, so that the Magic Johnsons creating institutions for them where they can see their history and no compromising lies about what they went through. We saw it from Charlie's point of view, and I see it from our point of view. Thank you very, very much for honoring me. Thank you. There we are.
Are we going to Fat Burgers, Beah?
No.
Party pooper.
No, don't do it. Don't do it.
Okay, let it be your air. Pull it in and out.
How long did you smoke?
Since I was 17, I smoked. My rebellion went into doing stuff, that I wasn't supposed to do, I was defiant. It was a hiding place. People couldn't get to you, You just blow some smoke in their face.
Rebellious Beah attended Dillard College in New Orleans. She couldn't stand it. She called it the miseducation of black people.
It was so painful to see the destructive nature of relationships between colors. They were into sororities, and sororities were about, I don't know.
I remember she was very black, very beautiful, a lovely figure, and standoffish. She was a loner. She had such high standards.
I was so miserable, I was not learning anything. And my mother sitting at the sewing machine trying to keep me down there, and I said, no, it's not worth it.
Beah dropped out and returned home to Vicksburg. She babysat for a white family, baked pies in a diner, and spent as much time as she could writing.
Everything irritated me. I couldn't stand it. My mother was trying to get me out of Mississippi before I got killed because I was in such rages all the time. She said you'd go to California.
I came to California with $10, and I did not know a soul and didn't have a single relative. But there is this thing, I'm going to be this actress I'm going to be.
She had such grace and style and elegance, you know. I remember saying to other actors at the time, why can't you move like Beah does? I turned to one person and I said, she's very elegant, isn't she? She says, yes, well, a little too elegant for my taste.
Beah said Mississippi left her a realist in a racist society. So when she settled in San Diego, I guess it didn't surprise her that she couldn't find a dance class that would take her, although one teacher finally agreed to give her private lessons. She did find some acceptance at the Old Globe Theater. There, she was choreographer, dancer, lyricist, and actor, although Beah endured being cast primarily as a maid. Noel did direct the play One is a Crowd, which Beah wrote and starred in.
She would tell me that it's so hard when I feel that I can do so many things and I'm so limited in what I can do and what I can achieve. She wanted acceptance on all levels, and at that time, it was very, very difficult. And I tried to help her as much as I could, but I did have a theater to run.
I think, like most black actors, you daydream at a certain level, you know, when you're growing up, and you read and you imagine yourself in various roles. But then you look around at the realities. Your life as an actor and as a human being, really, in the beginning of being an African American, has to do with that measuring and that deciding what doors will open, what doors can you kick open, what things can you make happen, how can you live in this world.
To limit me is a blunder. I could make the 7 wonders wonder. Oh, I haven't even started yet. You don't think I could? You want to bet? And when it comes to singing, oh, I'm really quite a girl. As a matter of fact, I am ready for the Met. I could do a Carmen that would really be alarming. Get that toreador in quite a sweat. You don't think so? You want to bet?
All visits took place in Beah's den. When friends and students came by, they went straight back to the den where Beah sat, Buddha-like on her bed. That's where she lived most of her days. Occasionally she would venture to the living room, but even that short walk tired her out. She needed help with food shopping, bathing, and cooking, and she was permanently linked to a loud and annoying oxygen concentrator. Still, none of this stopped Beah from looking for roles that interested her.
This is a sitcom, I think it is, or something like that.
Need sides?
Sides, yeah. This is a 30-minute something or other. And it's a Mrs. Connolly. When I was your age, a script would come in the mail, and I'd sit down with it and I'd say, oh, wow, please let this be something I would want to do, that I would want to do even if it, you know, that I would really, really want to do. And then I'd open it. And then I'd read it.
Did you ever do a Shakespeare play?
Yeah, I did Lady Macbeth.
What about folks that say that, and even black folks that say that Shakespeare has nothing to do with us and we shouldn't be doing it? And why do it? Why don't we do our own plays?
Well, I'm certainly for that. I will ask that question too. But I don't think we'll find them that different. Because I think the cadence, if you take a Martin Luther King speech and just listen rhythmically, listen to the metaphor and the meter, the uniqueness of that, you will find a poetic line that is as thrilling as anything you will ever read in Shakespeare.
And he's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land.
And I've seen, and it's 390 degrees, darling.
And I've seen the promised land.
The promised land. Huh? What? Thrilling. Thrilling. Come on. He had it, girl. He had it going on. And then you get Miss Connolly. Miss Connolly says, what is it? Oh, it's you. What are you doing here? What happened to Linda from the other day? What happened to Linda from the other day? Well, whatever. So, oh, please. Never mind. Never mind.
Morning, Miss B.
It's already open.
Good morning. Did you have a good morning?
Not bad.
2 years had passed since Beah worked. It wasn't until she was offered a guest starring role on the television series The Practice that she was inspired to perform again. When I called to tell her she got the gig, she kept saying, "I don't believe it, sister. I don't believe it." It was amazing to act with her again, and especially now that we had become so close. I have often wondered whether Beah knew this would be her final performance. So when you heard that Bea Richards was doing the part of Gertrude, how did you feel about that?
That was what made me decide to do this. The most impressive thing about working with Beah has been her ability to define for the artists around her what it is, what the work is. Sometimes I find myself unable to figure out what it is I should be feeling or doing. And when you work with someone who is so sure, then you don't have to work so hard trying to figure out anything at all. You just go with the flow.
Yeah.
So have you had a good day?
Well, this has been a surprising day. I just wish I could have brought to it all the energy that I used to have from my craft, you know, not being able to breathe properly, you know, breath is life. I don't know, but every time I get on stage and I start to work, I've managed to reduce my interest in my body as the mind and the I and the me and all that. It goes away and I feel just, you know, really great.
Let's go on a bell, please. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Roll it.
Frank was at me. I told him before, you take your hand to me again. And he did. Right across my face, like so many times before. And I saw it there.
You saw what?
The board. I didn't mean to kill him. Just swat him down. Mom. I'm sorry, Claire. I killed your daddy. I did.
Buddy, let's have some tissues in for Beah.
The director of the Globe Theater said, Beah, you've got to take your stuff to New York. I knew I couldn't go there first. I had money to get to Los Angeles. And when I came to Los Angeles, somebody told me about Frances Williams, a wonderful, wonderful woman who introduced me to everybody.
Frances Williams, you may know as an African-American actress, but was also very much a community activist, a social activist, a political activist.
Frances Williams' kitchen was where the meeting of progressive politics, art, and the fight against racism took place. So there was Beah, eating spoon bread with the likes of Langston Hughes, Shirley Graham Du Bois, and W.E.B. Du Bois, William and Louise Patterson, and Paul Robeson.
And you know, I was too shy to say anything. I just sat there absolutely astonished.
I'm sure it must have been very exciting because, of course, Paul Robeson and W.E.B. Du Bois, those are the tallest trees in our forests. I mean, they're the leading icons of Black America in the 20th century.
It's like being born. It's like rising from the dead. That's what it is. And I was just writing like mad. And in the process of all of this writing, I was developing. I was beginning to understand that life really could have a focus and it could have a meaning. And here I am meeting Paul Robeson, my God.
Did my Lord deliver Daniel, deliver Daniel, deliver Daniel? Did my Lord deliver?
On the very evening that Beah met Paul Robeson, she read him a poem. She wrote it when she was a teenager. It was inspired, she said, by his public refusal to perform to segregated audiences around the country.
To hear Robeson say, I will not sing. If they can't come, I don't sing them. With those words, that man lifted me. He lifted. Paul Robeson, how proudly your name flourishes on my tongue, even yet. For long ago, when quite young, I lived in voiceless penury. You sang a song for me and mine, for those of us who heard each day the tyrant scream, laggard, low birth, mean, and juggled with our pay. Paul Robeson sang, walk together, children. Don't you get weary. There is a balm in Gilead. So that now that I have found my tongue, I always repeat, Paul Robeson speaks for me, even yet. That was my poem. I toward the end there, I forgot them. Sometimes it hits you so hard you just can't. I just couldn't remember.
In that same kitchen, Beah met her lifelong friend and mentor, political activist Louise Thompson Patterson.
Louise Patterson was with the Civil Rights Congress in New York that fought for lynch victims, you know, both legal lynching and illegal lynching. The struggle for the life of Willie Lee McGee was going on.
Willie McGee, who was a black man in Jim Crow, Mississippi, who was accused of raping a white woman who actually was his lover. The case was fought in the courts, it was fought in the streets.
Louise Patterson brought Rosalie McGee to Los Angeles for a meeting. This innocent woman, she fought for his life. And I thought that was so extraordinary. I said, well, I wonder if I could feel that way if I knew my husband had been in a liaison with another woman for 2 years. And I thought this is more woman than any people have seen, and I don't know. So I was very intrigued. And then Frances asked me to do some of my poetry for Louise Patterson. And do the one she said you did for Paul when he was here, and I did. And we had such a joyous time. And she says, you're coming to New York. You've got to do this work in New York, and you can stay with me. That's how I got to New York. You know, you don't ever know how anything is going to happen. You don't know, because I'm penniless. I don't mean I don't have anything. I mean I'm penniless. Well, it so happened that they were having this peace conference in Chicago, and they had offered a prize to the poem that most expressed the idea of peace. I had written a poem that said, a black woman speaks of white womanhood, of white supremacy, and of peace. And it came right out of that meeting with Rosalie McGee. I got up to read the poem. You couldn't hear a pin drop. Everything was just like death descended on the room. It is right that I, a woman black, should speak of white womanhood. My husbands, my fathers, my brothers, my sons die for it. They said, the white supremacists said, that you were better than me, that your fair brow should never know the sweat of slavery. They lied. White womanhood too is enslaved. The difference is degree. They brought me here in chains. They brought you here willing slaves to man. You bore him sons. I bore him sons. No, not willingly. He purchased you. He raped me. You were afraid to nurse your young, lest fallen breasts offend your master's sight, and he should flee to firmer loveliness. And so, you passed them, your children, on to me. Flesh that was your flesh, blood that was your blood, drank the sustenance of life from me. And as I gave suck, I knew I nursed my own child's enemy. I could have lied, told you your child was fed till it was dead of hunger. But I could not find the heart to kill orphaned innocence, for as it fed, it smiled and burped and gurgled with content. And as for color, knew no difference. Yes, in that first while, I kept your sons and daughters alive. But when they grew strong, in blood and bone that was of my milk, you taught them to hate me. You gave them the words mammy and nigger, so that strength that was of myself turned and spat upon me, despoiled my daughters, and killed my sons. And when I finished it, all of a sudden there's this scream. It's a scream. There's 500 women screaming. I mean, not screaming, they're crying, they're screaming. They have their arms around each other. They are people all over this convention hall hear them, and they think we are being attacked by the police. They come running and say, "What is the matter? What has happened? What has happened?" They said, "This woman read a poem." You did what? She read a poem. And I will never forget it as long as I live. There was one woman who picked me up. She picked me up. She picked me up bodily. And there was a table in the middle of the thing. She stood me on the table, and she had a pocket handkerchief, and she gave it to me, and she said, "Wave it, wave it, wave it."
Beah won that poetry contest and $300, just enough to get her to New York.
And when I got to New York, there was Louise waiting.
Beah said that Louise, on the drive from the airport to the apartment in Harlem, talked about New York as if it was hers, as if she belonged, as if she was a part of this country. She said she had never heard anyone who was African American talk the way that she talked, as if she were claiming it.
And I went into their household, and I'm telling you, I became a part of that family. They were that kind of people.
She moved into an inferno. She walked into what some might call the headquarters of radicalism in the United States. It was a home that was subjected to political surveillance.
My father was a member of the leadership of the Communist Party, and my mother had been in the party and at one point was called the most important black woman communist in America.
William Patterson was also a leader of the Civil Rights Congress. It was a very ugly country that the Civil Rights Congress arose in 1946. You have a state of legalized apartheid in the United States of America. Of course, the term we used in this country was Jim Crow. Not only separate but unequal schools, but if you go into court, you have to swear in as a witness on different Bibles, for example. In some states, it was against the law for black and white workers to look out of the same window. I mean, it really reached the level of absurdity. But that absurdity was outweighed tremendously by the kind of violence that was used to enforce the system. Patterson and Robeson charged the United States with genocide against black people. This We Charge Genocide campaign. It was a worldwide campaign. So the fact that she would choose to associate with the Pattersons at a time when they may have been the most controversial couple in the United States of America, it says something.
And that something was Beah's undying commitment to truth and freedom through her poetry, in spite of the negative consequences to herself. She demonstrated this time and again at political rallies, fundraisers, and concerts.
Mr. Patterson was the first person I saw who was going to the wall for these guys. So you couldn't scare me with talking about your communism. No, you couldn't scare me with that. Fascism scared me, because I faced it every day in Mississippi. I would die for these people. They're my people. They've fought for me to say I'm a human being. I will die for them.
When my father went to jail, Beah always found a way to bring laughter into our home. And it was a hard time. But somehow I don't remember being afraid. And I think it was because of the tremendous strength of Beah and my mother. They were a team. they formed an organization called the Sojourners for Truth and Justice. This organization of African American women that was nationwide, and they started with a call to black women to go to Washington, D.C., to go to Congress, to the White House, and to the Pentagon.
We stayed up for about almost 48 hours writing that call. I would pace the floor with ideas, and she did the writing. The call to Negro women to petition the government for redress of grievances.
We are the ones, we are the ones, we've been waiting,
Dry your tears, and in the spirit of Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth, arise. Come to Washington and speak your mind. Dear Mr. President, we, a representative group of Negro women of the United States, request an audience with you, so that we may make known to you the sufferings we can no longer as second-class citizens endure. To the War Department, tell us how you can take peace and freedom to the people of any nation, while at home our government has never and does not now protect the lives and liberties of 15 million of its own citizens.
These were pioneer women, militant women, who were unafraid in a period that was very reactionary, very dangerous. Women were going to jail.
They tried to organize not only black women in the United States, but they tried to organize black women in the hemisphere, in Africa, and also Asian women, and women in general.
We ask, therefore, that you inform us at what hour on Monday, October 1, you will receive us. Respectfully yours, B. Richardson, for the Initiating Committee.
And they came like... All the way from California? They came like they had been waiting for the call. It was just absolutely the most unbelievably marvelous thing that has ever happened. And the songs we sang, that we are sojourners for our rights, we are sojourners for our rights, we are sojourners for our rights, until we wake up the conscience of the land. We were ready to struggle.
And how long did it exist?
Not very long. You have to keep in mind that these organizations were under a tremendous amount of pressure and scrutiny and surveillance. FBI agents coming, knocking on the door of your neighbors, asking about what you're doing. It was hard to raise money. It was hard to gain members. It was hard for people to sign their petitions, because if you signed one of their petitions, you might wind up with an FBI file.
It didn't faze Beah that she was under surveillance or on the blacklist. As she told me, I've been on a list ever since I've been in this world. I wonder if Beah knew that her over 100-page FBI file spanned from 1951 to 1972. Apparently, Hoover was convinced that Beah was planning to overthrow the government by reading her poetry.
So how did you get into theater in New York when you got there?
Sister, my life in theater is stranger than fiction. It really is. First of all, you got to have an agent. You got to give everybody pictures, and she has one to send out, you know. I got none of this. I don't have any money for any pictures. And aside from that, the pictures that they take of me, I ain't gonna get no work out of those pictures. I look at, no, I know better. They had a lot of off-Broadway stuff, you know. And I went out and I read for this Take a Giant Step. They told me I was too young to play the grandmother. Okay. So I know I've got to do something, because, you know, money is getting awful tight. I got a New York Times and I see that they need a maid at Slenderella's. All you got to do is punch buttons and shake people on these tables, you know, for fat. The second day I was at there, the phone rang. She said, they have called you from the Jan Hus auditorium. And I walk in there and they have me read for the grandmother again. And they buy me a gray wig and I'm on. What happened? The woman who was playing it died.
At the age of 36, this was Beah's first paying job as an actor. She did get to play the role of the mother in the film version of Take a Giant Step.
Where you going?
I'm going to get the hell out of here, that's all.
Well, go ahead. Go ahead and see how far you will get acting the way you act. Your father's right about you. You're too proud. You think you can go through life being proud, don't you? Well, you're wrong. You are a little black boy, and you don't seem to understand it, but that's what you are. You think this is bad? Well, it'll be worse. You'll laugh at them when you feel like crying. You'll smile at them when you could put knives right into their backs without giving it a second thought. And you'll never do what you've done and let them know they've hurt you. They never forgive you for that.
In between, Beah worked. She had a day job at Ophelia Divorce Charm School on 125th Street, one of the first African-American charm schools. Beah was the darkest thing in there.
One foot directly in front of the other foot and turn on the balls of both feet, huh? You can laugh if you want to. Ask Diane Carroll. Ask her, didn't I teach her? Ask her.
Beah's next job was as an understudy in the Broadway production and national tour of Lorraine Hansberry's A Raisin in the Sun. Beah finally made her Broadway debut in 1959 as Viney, the maid, in The Miracle Worker, and subsequently reprised her role in the film.
This child never gives me a minute's worry.
Oh, yes. This one's the angel of the family. No question about that.
I saw the elegance, but also I detected early on the majesty and authority that Beah had. Beah sort of insisted on whatever it was she was building it for us, for black people. So how to insert her capacities into the stuff that Hollywood often provided was her challenge. And she rose to it. She knew how to be a queen, although she might be wearing a maid's, garments.
Have you got anything to do with what my boy's been thinking lately?
I didn't know he had been thinking lately.
Don't you play with me, Adela. You know what I mean. Who's been putting these integrationary ideas in my boy's head?
We believe in freedom, cannot rest.
I was writing a column for a newspaper in New York called Freedom Ways. And since I was from the South and I sort of knew my way around, they said, well, you go down there and do an article for the paper for us. The struggle in Birmingham had reached a part where people were going to jail. When you hit the town, when you got off the train, let me tell you, you could tell something extraordinary was going on in this town.
It was not safe. And for Beah to go there, to write and to record, it was a risky proposition. She was a very brave woman to undertake this, and made a major contribution, I think, to the struggle.
The clear, bright daylight of freedom that floods the faces of the Negro citizens of Birmingham is the most beautiful and inspiring halo that ever ennobled a struggle or a people.
The struggle has gotten so deep and it's gotten so fierce and it's gotten so compelling and it's so rich and it's so wonderful and it's so everybody feels alive and everybody feels that I am alive, I am a person, I can make a difference in my life. People in the I can thing is really something else and you don't notice how it hurts. When they hit you with a club, you don't notice. You're so in the I am thing that you just can't, it doesn't make any difference. Your rage, everything is so under control, because you know you've got them running, and you know they are beaten. You know they are beaten. And it's such a victorious, wonderful feeling. So that was a triumphant day.
When I first asked Beah when she was born, she said the day she met Frank Silvera.
My teacher was Frank Silvera. He gave me a definition of being. And he said, being is mortal existence in a complete and perfect state, lacking no essential characteristic. Everything you need, you've got. It's there. Perfect. Maybe not yet realized, but perfect. Complete. I cannot tell you. I couldn't tell him what he gave me. It was like a cork on the water, and it's down in the water, and you take the weight out, and it pops up. That's just what I did. I popped up. I popped up.
Frank understood that America needed a new way of relating to blacks, and that theater could be very important in providing us with the material to come up with a new image. Frank not only provided the physical venue, but he also, through trying to retrain us, help us get rid of our own subservience to the stereotype, help us to open up and discover our own humanity from another point of view. And Beah rose to Frank's occasion.
We are not so much actors as we are Beahs. And no pun intended, it happens to be my name.
Frank allowed her to be. He allowed her to be this short-haired, black woman with talent, and he said, just give it to us.
In 1964 in Los Angeles, Beah starred in James Baldwin's play Amen Corner, produced by and co-starring Frank Silvera.
Beah was indeed Sister Margaret, and I've seen the show 15,000 times since then. There has never been anyone that has equaled the performance of Beah Richards.
She broke your heart. There was a crying soul there that was just devastating. That was the first time, you see, that I saw that kind of raw emotions that were able to be recreated each night. And it wasn't just a technical thing, it went someplace else. It went to a new feeling in theater.
But Marlon Brando saw the Amen Corner, and he came out of there and said, "You got a new religion." And then he said, "That woman is a genius. She makes me feel like tearing up my equity card."
Amen Corner was so successful in LA, it moved to Broadway. Despite Beah's Tony nomination and amazing reviews, the Broadway run lasted only 3 months. Beah and the company returned to Los Angeles for another sold-out run, and still, Hollywood was offering Beah roles as maids and old women. Frank aired his contempt for racism in Hollywood by publishing multiple letters in the trades.
On March 30th, the industry discovered this magnificent actress, and she was offered 1 day's work as a maid, a role in which she would speak 8 lines. 1 day as a maid. We think that phrase would make a nice title for a feature movie.
He was kind of in awe of her talent. Beah was his pride and joy. He thought, by the way, that she was the best actress in the world. He felt that there was no one any better than Beah Richards on stage. I think that they were kindred spirits. I think that they had a fondness and a respect, and that was a kind of a universal love for each other and for each other's talent and for each other's capacity to love and to give and to create.
When Frank so suddenly left us, she took it upon herself to the best of her ability, both in what she did and in what she tried to teach others to do, to express what Frank was trying to express in his theater of being. She did it most notably in her performances. I remember quite vividly in the picture, you know, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? When she had to play the mother of Sidney Poitier, and she had to make this speech about love being all sufficient.
What happens to men when they grow old? Why do they forget everything? I believe those two young people need each other like they need the air to breathe in. Anybody can see that by just looking at them. But you and my husband you might as well be blind men. You can only see that they have a problem.
Now, Beah knew that that was a lie, you know, and that was that these two people were going to catch holy hell the minute they stepped out of their house.
Yes,
These two marvelous people, a black man and a white woman, and these children are in love, and love is all that we need to consider. That's what she was saying, you know. And, you know, life.
Maybe they did love each other.
Of course. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo.
Boo-hoo.
At the same time, it was a chance at that level to make any statement at all. So she made it. She made it with authority. She made even me listen to what she was saying.
The town of Vicksburg refused to show Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Beah and her family had to drive all the way to Jackson to see the film. Beah's performance in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner earned her an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actress.
How did you feel when you got your Oscar nomination?
I don't know. I don't know. It was a terrible time. The ceremony was put off a day because it was the day of the funeral of Martin Luther King. I was kind of unconscious during the whole thing. It was like, you know, I wasn't even there. Do you know what I mean? I wasn't even there. And I went through that whole thing kind of out of it. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know what anything meant then. It's 11 o'clock. Let's stop.
By now, Beah could no longer live on her own. Her only choice was to sell her house and either go to a nursing home or move back to Vicksburg, where her niece Sherry offered to care for her. Until she made up her mind, Beah relied on friends to spend nights with her.
She would pretend that she was doing well.
I'm doing all right.
She could come out in that booming voice. Yes, how you doing? I'm doing okay. How you doing, Miss Ruby?
No, I'm just fine. All right. Thanks so much.
But I could see that she'd get off in a minute.
All right, bye-bye. That's my niece.
She used to do those tricks with her niece, too. That's why she didn't realize that she wasn't doing that well, because she could get that breath up knowing Sherry was going to call that Sunday. Oh, I'm just doing fine. And, you know, it wasn't how she was feeling really at all.
Were you dreaming?
Was I talking?
No, I was just wondering do you remember what you were dreaming?
It had to have been painful for Beah to consider selling her home of 25 years. That house and Beah were one and the same.
That was my engagement present. The black women in Deepwater over there.
So who's this man you married?
Oh, never mind. Just never mind. He's a nice enough guy, you know. It's not his fault. It's not my fault. It's just us. Yeah.
Can you recall for me when you first saw Beah what it was like?
I was blasted. She was so dynamic. You know, the way she spoke and handled herself, I was pinned against the wall.
How long were you married?
3 years.
How long were you married?
2 days.
Just 2 days?
That's what it seemed. It was a very short time.
But you had fun.
We did. I would bring home a painting or a piece of sculpture. Beah would turn the whole house around. If it was 2 o'clock in the morning, we'd stay up until 4. One picture, you just couldn't hang a picture. You had to hang it in relationship to everything else.
They were incredibly happy. You go over to the house, and Hugh, in fact, was really producing a lot of wonderful art at the time.
Both sides are Beah, huh?
Yeah.
Why do you think you divorced?
I couldn't stand being Mr. Richard. I didn't see any light at the end of the tunnel for me.
I remember feeling very depressed when I heard that they were going to part. I wanted this black, beautiful soul woman to find somebody to cherish her and hold her and reassure her.
But most of us black men are so wounded by the society that we haven't got the power we need to give to our women what they need. We can't make that last full embracing statement because we don't really know how.
I realized in One Is a Crowd, I had to regenerate myself and talk about my experience. And of course, when I started to look at it, a new relationship with men developed for me. Yeah. Because I realized he didn't see me either. He lost sight of me. He didn't see me. He didn't see his mother. He's looking in another direction. He's looking at this fiction, and he says, but you're not woman. He knows this fiction is not you. Yes, I can get a very light-skinned black woman, but she's not it either. I'm going to get the real deal and see if that's it. To find that that's a fiction also. So this is why I wrote One Is a Crowd. And when I have to say to my man, I know who I am, what I am, why I am, as I am. I sat chained in that slave ship, just like you.
I stood on that auction block and was inspected and sold just like you. I bore the lash and sustained the pain. I knew the mockery and the shame and picked my bale of cotton just like you. Escaped with the bloodhounds at my heels just like you, and did my share of the fighting too. How dare you set a boundary for me? How dare you? I am no male idea of shrinking femininity. I am no clinging vine. That's Charlie's shit, and don't you bring it to me. I have no more fear. I've used it up. Do you hear? I'll have no more of supremacy, neither white nor male. Now get out of here. Out. Out.
Out! Out! I wish you'd seen that. We call that the get out scene. I wish you'd seen the get out scene. Get out. And Sissy, she's coming out of these clothes. She's coming out of the West. She's taking off the West. until she gets down to that back picture there. And she's into that. And do you know that not a single review mentioned that this child got completely down to the nitty-gritty, and nobody, they didn't even see it. It was like I had all my clothes on. It was like I had all my clothes on. Do you hear that, sister? For the first time I wasn't naked. Huh? Ain't that rich? Now that ends this session. We don't need to go no more. Get out! 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 Get out!
She started talking about it. I had to get her out of that home before she got herself into trouble.
That's why you married her, to get her out before she said too much?
That and I love her. What are they gonna do to her?
Nothing. You're free to go. You can take her home if you want.
Where is she? Gertie? I'm gonna take you home, sweetheart.
You're not mad at me?
Hey, I love you. Come on, let's go home.
You caught Miss B kissing.
I had that. I feel honest to goodness, man.
Mrs. Bellamy?
People around here call me Mama Kaliba.
Mama, I'm not from around here. But you can put me on my train.
You talk crazy. You're gin drunk.
Just homesick.
Lord, Lord.
Whisper 2 little words, Mama, and I'm on my way.
Maybe I don't want to sever a beautiful child like you right out.
Everybody looked at Hollywood as the thing that was going to pay the rent. But I didn't even expect it to do that.
You didn't? But you made a living, yes?
Is that what we were doing? Was that living? I didn't think that was living yet. Not quite yet. You know, freedom is living.
Beah found freedom at C. Bernard Jackson's Inner City Cultural Center. It was there she could do it all: teach, direct, and perform.
The culture from which we spring believes in the unity of opposites. The +1, -1, nothing continuum. It is male because it has no breast. It is female because it is pregnant. It is animal because it has no hands. It is divine because in union it becomes a creator of life. This is the black view of the essential oneness of nature. And nature is neither reasonable nor just. Nature is exact.
It was just wonderful to see her mold a performer and bring things out in that performer that the performer never knew existed.
She would always say to me, "Sister, peel away the layers.
That's right.
You know, get to the essence, you know. Stop acting. Be."
Each class was very different. It was like church. It was church. The dictionary was the Bible. She didn't want us to memorize lines. So what we do, we look up every word.
Anything that you need to know about the character can be found in the word.
Words have meaning.
And the meaning can pierce right through your heart. And it can free you from all of the chains and things that bind your mind and your body.
She felt that you would not have to memorize. You would just be that person. Even in that class, she didn't want people to take notes. She would always say, note, not note.
When we brought B. Richards to the university where I worked, Jackson State University, she was living at my home during this whole process. We had 1 week, less than a week, it was like 5 days to prepare the show Mojo. She was sort of frustrated with me because I was too filled up with being in charge of the festival, getting my children off to school every day, cooking my husband's breakfast and dinner, and handle the press because she was our guest, and I was just so busy. So one night at rehearsal, she said, you know what, I'm going to leave. And when I return, maybe you will be ready. She made me feel terrible. I got home, she had closed her door, locked her door, and gone to bed. In the middle of the night, my husband and I heard these voices. We could hear drawers opening and closing, doors slamming. And these voices, more than one, in that room. The next morning, she was up just bright. Good morning, brother. How are you this morning? Would you like some coffee? And my husband said, yeah, good. And she said, now, are you ready to leave? He said, yes, good. Well, you have a nice day. And sister, would you like some coffee? I said, yes, but I didn't know. She got rid of my husband. She said, well, let me get. I said, no, I'll get. No, you sit down, sister. It was like, sit down, but it was also an order to sit down. And she started pouring the coffee. I said, that's enough. And the coffee was just spilling all over the table. She just kept pouring. I said, Beah, please, this is fine. You must have an empty cup, sister. You must have an empty cup. You can't get this character when you don't have an empty cup. Your cup is too full. Coffee hot, going everywhere. I said, okay. Honest, by this time, tears were streaming down my face. Get your dictionary. Get the dictionary right now. What is your name in this show? I said my character's name. What does it mean? I don't know what it means. Look it up, sister. Look it up. She came last night. She visited me last night, and she said, let her out, sister. Let her out. Whew. I found myself, by the next rehearsal, becoming Bernice.
Can you name one of the roles that you've done in film where you feel like you got close? Damn close.
Oh, yeah. I got close. I got close in Beloved. I really knew where this woman was. I knew her rejoicing, and I knew why she rejoiced. Let the children come. Let your mothers hear you laugh. I know why she rejoiced. She rejoiced as I rejoiced in Martin Luther King, as I rejoiced in Harriet Tubman, as I rejoiced in my mother, as I rejoiced in my niece and my sisters, as I rejoiced in you standing in that barn that day after you had run that scene at least 6 or 7 times, picking up those babies and going in there and backing them and standing there. I thought you were at least 15 feet tall by the time we finished the scene to me. So I rejoice in that, you know. I know that's right, that's happening. Here in this place, we are flesh. Flesh that weeps, laughs, dances barefoot in the grass. Love your flesh. Love it hard. Yonder,
They do not love our flesh. Oh, my people, they do not love your hands. Love your hands. Raise them up and kiss them.
I've been climbing high mountains trying to get home. I've been climbing high mountains trying to get home.
Beah hadn't shared with me her decision to finally sell her house and move back to Mississippi. So on the day I drove up and saw the sign, I sat in my car for a good while in disbelief. And when I went in to greet her, neither one of us spoke about it.
There's one thing I have to say, I have enjoyed this house. Making it say what I wanted to say or what I felt like I needed to say. That was real joy. That was fun to do.
I've been wading deep water trying to get home.
That must be something, how to pack up your house.
Well, I don't dare go into it because, I don't dare go into it because it'll send me on such a trip. Mm-hmm. And I really don't need to go on that trip tonight. I don't need to have that one happen to me. Because usually I just go from change to change because that's what life is, you know.
My heart was in my throat as we waited for Beah to walk out of her front door for the last time. The air was thick with sadness. And even though I was traveling back to Mississippi with Beah and Sherry on the plane, the sense of loss persisted.
Okay, let me get it. Hello, how are you? I'm here. Here I am. Okay. Okay.
Look. Yeah,
This next Emmy is for Outstanding Guest Actress in a Drama Series, and the Emmy goes to Beah Richards for The Practice.
I am so honored to be standing before you to accept this award for Beah Richards, and I am sure she would stand before you with grace and pride and dignity and say thank you.
This was Beah's third Emmy, and perhaps the sweetest. My return to Vicksburg on this occasion could not have been more exciting. It was pure magic that Beah won. After all the hoopla, Mary Louise, Beah, and I sat up that night talking for hours.
Beah told me that she wanted to be cremated and that she wanted her ashes to be spread on the Confederate graveyard. It was a sort of a mischievous Beah, but she was serious. Beah was going to continue that struggle into eternity. Your life has been a struggle, but it's one that you've enjoyed.
Yes, indeed. I always won. I always won. I guess that's why this illness has got me so stymied. I don't know what to do. I never had any battle that I didn't win. And this one, but I can't say I fought it with any degree of thing. I think I gave up.
As tired as Beah was physically that evening, her mind was on fire. There was a clarity and a sharpness to her words that I hadn't experienced before. I got even more excited by the thought of future visits with Beah.
That's what I'm thinking.
It never occurred to me that this would be our last time together. 2 weeks later, she died.
The actor is a mighty, mighty person, I think, in this game. Therefore, every opportunity that a black actor has to get on stage and play, I don't care what the part is, I don't care how trashily it's written or whatnot, the actor has the opportunity to catch the contents of the audience. He has a chance. If he's portraying a human being, he has the opportunity to make them remember. It's not about you making your living as an actor. It is about you living as a human being. That's what it's about. But also be mindful that the world that you want to live in and that you need to live in needs you to create it. Needs you to create it. It needs your input. The world needs to hear what you have to say. The last word has not been spoken. The last word has not been spoken.
I never told Beah just how much I loved her and how much she gave me. I am so grateful that my African teacher is still here, reminding me of my power, of my rich culture from which I sprung, guiding me as I redefine who I am as a black woman, as a human being, and whispering in my ear that right now, in this very moment, I am perfect. Maybe not yet realized, but perfect.
We are sojourners.
Hey, girl. Here you go, sister.
We are sojourners. For we are sojourners. We'll wake up the conscience of the land. Gonna keep on fighting for our rights. Gonna keep on fighting for our rights. Gonna keep on fighting for our rights. Gonna wake up the conscience of the land. We are sojourners for our rights.
Dunia betene muna jongme labalo. Munal malo dunia betendine. Jaba murwo. I'm on my way to freedom land. I'm on my way to freedom land. I'm on my way to freedom land. I'm on my way. Praise God, I'm on my way. If you don't go, don't hinder me. If you don't go, don't hinder me. If you don't go, don't hinder me.
We are sojourners for our rights. We are sojourners for our rights. We are sojourners for our rights. Until we wake up the conscience of the land, gonna keep on fighting.
I will be myself, free, justice, peace, plenty for every man, woman, child who walks this earth. This is my fight. If you will fight with me, then take my hand, that our land may come at last to be a place of peace and human equality. For there is love and there is love. There is the serpent and there is the dove.